Hi everybody and welcome to SA Rugby Magazine. As usual, I've got Scott Gibbs to my left and Zelim Nell to my right. I just wanted to chat today and see if we can get some perspective on what's happening on the eve of the third and final test. You know, it's hard for me to forget that, you know, Wales lost to Italy. They did poor in the Six Nations. They're doing very well in this. But the Boks lost historically to Wales last week. What do we make into that? Especially when you add to that Italy just lost to Georgia. Does that make Georgia the world champions?
No.
I mean, I just want to try and get some perspective because I mean, there's a bit of a backlash about the ticket, the people paying a lot of money to go and see the Boks play, and they put out a so-called B-side. I don't think it was that. I think the continuity was not there, and they should have won the game by rights last week, but didn't, fail to do that. So what are we to make of what I've just said?
What did you just say? You said offer some perspective. Listen, perspective is, you know, the fact is that Wales were at a real low, you know, the weeks ensuing the Italian loss. Cause for Pipak's head. Were some of these players just too long in the turf? Did the management and team need to move on to the younger incumbents? And yet we find ourselves, obviously, you know, a few months later, 1-1 in the series with a series decider that's really given Wales a massive boost in confidence. We've seen a depth of character that we didn't see in the Six Nations, and that's probably made because of some of the bold selections for this tour. Tommy Raffel, obviously being one of the standout players, standout world breakaways at this moment in time, in a cohesive back row unit that Wales hasn't seen for a long time. And we know how influential back rowers can be on the imprint and the mark that they make in a game, and this one has been no different. We've also seen an incredible, consistent performance by both locks in the adversity of so much uncertainty in the front row because so many frontline players have been out injured, not available, and injured on the tour. So I think from that perspective, it's been an enormously encouraging emblem for Welsh rugby, given the lows that we saw post Six Nations and also the performances during the URC, which were dismal and disappointed to say the least. So we're here on the eve, one test all. You don't come this far to come this far, and that's why I believe they're still in with a shout this Saturday. And there's so much that they've got to get right. They probably have to look at another dimension to find in not only where they can find space and capitalize on space, but also in an energy, you know, in an energy space that they will have benefited from the last 15 days or so at altitude, as will the Boks for sure, against the backdrop of what I feel are the two intangibles that really are, you know, wholly owned by the Springboks, and that is the bomb squad and the box slash. You know, which you know are coming Saturday, but you don't know what minute of the game they're going to come. So that's what makes it infinitely more interesting. And I think we hope as supporters and such that this game is a little bit more explosive and we see a little bit more rugby activity because it has been very attritional, which is not pleasant to the eye. And, you know, and I think, you know, I always say, like, trust your eyes, is that last week took an enormous amount of effort out of that Welsh team. They'll be better for it, but of course they just need to find some fluidity to try and put the Boks under pressure. And that means trying to find this perimeter game that we haven't seen yet. We haven't seen the outside backs really flourish because the game's been played in that middle of the field. So it's about game balance, certainly for Wales. And the fact is that Biggar's pass fit, which is a great positive for him, great positive for the team and his leadership.
He's the general, right?
He is the general that, you know, in in a cauldron like DHL Stadium in Cape Town, which is nothing like playing in Johannesburg or Pretoria. They need to find a freedom of expression that we haven't seen yet, and do they have that is the big question.
And thanks, Scott. You wrote an article saying that the Rassie is the one man smiling after the loss. Do you want to expand on that? Should South Africans be worried about losing to a team that lost to Italy, that lost to Georgia? I mean, should we be panicking a little bit?
No, I don't think there's any need for panic. I think Rassie definitely has a plan, and this is part of the plan. The point of what I was saying there was it was unnecessary to lose a game against Wales and give up a historic record like that to achieve some of these things. There are ways to do that without losing. Without doubt, South Africa has been underwhelming in these first two tests, and there are reasons for it. The second test is obvious. We scratched our starters.
Well, they've played one good half.
Yeah. And so in the first test, we played guys that were in a Sharks team that got kicked out of URC quite early, weren't in great form, and we meshed those guys with players coming back from Japan who we haven't seen since November last year. And we started a flower who hasn't played in 6 months. So
what are some of the challenges into someone? You've got Niebauer that doesn't have the same charisma, the same impact on when he's not there. When Rassie's not there, Rassie obviously gets more out of this team.
Right.
And it still is his team as far as I'm
Absolutely.
concerned.
Yeah.
But what is going wrong with the Boks? Is there complacency with, certainly the rumors that I've been hearing and spreading?
Yeah.
Is there a bit of complacency with the Rock Nation guys? It's almost as if they don't have to play for their places.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we're reading too much into where the Boks are after these two tests. I think definitely we were going to have a slow start regardless.
We're always going to read too much into anything.
Yeah, well, I suppose so. But I mean, that's just my take. I think it's way too early to panic about the Boks. It's way too early to panic. That second test was avoidable, but we will see a backlash, as you call it.
I'm not just talking about this game.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Australia. They got killed in Australia. Fair enough, they beat New Zealand once, but they've lost to New Zealand, they've lost to England, they've lost to Wales. I'm not just talking about this test in here, I'm talking about a body of work over 2 years.
I guess what you're saying, Kev, is that over the last year, the kind of win record is maybe 55-60% as opposed to kind of 75+%. And what's behind that? You could argue that last week's experiment, blew back in their face, because the easiest way to triage players is to really define 42 of your best players into the 35 that you want to carry forward for the next 18 months. Sure. And along with that, you have to reaffirm what game sharpness is all about. So if you're not playing in a competitive league and you're playing overseas in somewhere like Japan, then you're going to be a little bit off the speed. So speed, agility and quickness is something that you have to find quickly, and you can as an athlete do that under the right kind of, and in the right system, under the right regime. And they probably will at some point rue the fact that they missed an opportunity last week to maybe just put their starters to get them into the game again, get them into the system, familiarize yourself with the body language, etc. But all that said, given that I think that some of them would have enjoyed the break last week, and more so the fact is that someone like Lucanio and Sia, whilst would have been disappointed with not getting selected last week, know that these guys will have to bounce back. And they usually do. If once they've had a poorish type of performance because they set very good standards, is that usually they bounce back with a man of a match type performance. And of course, you get that from a leadership perspective from an outside back, and also right in the heart of it with a captain. Mesh that with Ebenezer's 100th start. And the way he plays and applies himself to his football, not only at club level, but more so in the Boks jersey, it is. We will see a different complexion from the Boks this Saturday. There is no doubt.
Yeah, I hope so, and I think that one true saying is that it's easier to get to the top than stay at the top, and that's the difference this year in terms of me preparing for a World Cup. Is that before they were galvanized and they had a clear focus goal, and they're trying something very similar this time. But the difference is that they're world champions, and their quarterfinal matchup will be either France or New Zealand. So it's how you prepare for that. You've got to prepare differently for this World Cup than you did the last World Cup.
And
You could afford to lose to New Zealand,
Right.
which they did, and still win the World Cup. This time you can't. France or New Zealand. I wouldn't. I wouldn't. I probably right now want to play New Zealand.
Yeah, but Kev, also you whilst Rassi and Jacques are not. They're not beholden to anyone except for the fans, because the fans' expectation is that there's a certain level that we expect to see, but we haven't seen in the last couple of weeks. So you better show us this weekend, or we're going to start to get a little bit unfettered and a little bit jittery about our plans going forward. And I think that's the marker that has to be said, because when you're when there's familiarity in a system and the same voice giving the same messaging, you can quickly just stay off, get off script a little. So the focus now will be back on script, back to what we do well with increased volume and intensity, because that's the only way they know how.
Yeah.
No. And Kev, if we're in this position next week talking about a Bok loss against Wales, second one in a row we've lost the series, then absolutely you can start to flip the cap on the panic button. But I think we need to see how they respond this week. I think that's going to be very telling.
And with the changes, where are you guys leaning in terms of your predictions? You got it spot on last week. Well done, guys. I got it spot on in terms of the score, but horribly wrong in terms of the winning team.
I think the Boks are going to win this game and win it quite comfortably. That's my gut feel.
Give us a score.
I'm going to say Boks by 15. I'm going to say 37-22.
Scotty?
Well, listen, it's difficult to rationalise on the sense that last week was an enormous effort, and what an achievement. Never to be taken away.
Yeah.
As I said, the character and the resilience that would have built, and confidence that would have been restored within that team with this leadership group after a long year. I still feel that there's an upset. I do, because I see there's something about this team that is so bloody gnarly, and just won't go away, like a Cape Town mosquito. You know he's there, but you're hoping he's slow. But when you go for him, he's gone. So I think they're going to stay in there. I think they're going to stay in their wells, and of course. My head will say the Boks, but my heart does say Wales. But as I said, I can't make a prediction, because the two unknowns and the intangibles, like the backlash that is coming, the backlash that is coming, and the bomb squad, because I just think Marx is unplayable, unplayable. Yeah. With kits off. I just think it's too much. It's too much. It's kind of unfair. It's like finishing 14 rounds of a world championship fight, like the Thriller in Manila, and then suddenly at the last round there's another guy that comes in swinging, and you just cannot duck the punches. So listen. All in all, we'll reflect on this weekend's test match. There is no doubt about that, and we will do it with smiles on our faces, because obviously there'll only be one winner. I'm not going to be cheesy enough to say rugby is the winner, because we haven't seen any fucking rugby so far, have we? It's been very, very, middle of the field crush. Yeah. But that said, listen, I never take it away that was an enormous effort last week, and. The caliber of these guys that have had to stood up in face of adversity and all the cuck that's been thrown at them from the media and everyone around the world to bounce back and to be in both test matches over the last couple of weeks has been a remarkable effort. And I think there's another shift for them. They just know that they got to play 85 minutes of super clean football, keep the penalties low, and obviously this time they're going to have to play, because you're not going to win a test match if you're not going to run more than 50 yards in the game. So the work rate and the workload has to be shared, but it has to be on point. And at the end of it, they'll still be proud. But I just got a feeling, Kev, I got a feeling
Could
that
be gas, mate.
what it could be, it could be gas, it could be COVID, it could be that damn mosquito. I don't know what it is.
Well, we've discussed it all today. We've discussed mosquitoes.
Yeah.
Cock, for those Welsh viewers out there, it just means basically shit. My take on it is this: I'm always fearful of putting money on any team that's just played not the game of their lives, but the momentum.
Yeah. You know what? You and I are right. It's like, it's when you summit the mountain, right? Whether you pick any one of those 8,000 meter peaks in the Himalaya, right? The amount of energy it takes and the teamwork it is to summit. Most people perish on the descent because they just haven't got enough in themselves to make it back to safety. So as you say, the level of focus last week and over the last 2 weeks to get that elusive win has been enormous. Yeah. To do it again, I agree. It is going to be a schlep of all schleps. That's what rugby is so great, and that's why these test series in the Southern Hemisphere have been so great. Is because in test rugby it's very difficult to back it up. Yeah. It's very difficult to back it up.
Well, just look at last week's and everybody reversing the team losing at one. So for me, you've got that against Wales. You've got the fact that they've been battered for 2 tests at altitude. And yeah, they're playing at sea level now. But I never bet on a team when they've summited the mountain. Never. It's just it's one of the unwritten rules of any good gambler. So for me, I'm going to have to lean with Z. I think that to absorb another test, and this will be like, to me, changing fighters, as you so eloquently put it earlier on, changing fighters in the 13th round, and then the 14th and the 50th. I think that Wales will come out well for the first 20 minutes, and then if it's not going their way, the mindset will be, well, we got the historic win, and it's maybe the thoughts then are about the flight home, or the party that night in Cape Town. It's supposed to be a beautiful day. So for me, I like Wales to go down by 15 at least. I think it could get ugly, but to my countrymen, I just don't see it happening. But that's why the game's played. It's not paid on paper. And I want to thank you guys for the conversation. Scott, you're on fire today. And let's may the best team win.
Well, let's hope not.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.